right, enough Real Madrid. How about some quick hits instead?
Absolutely. Let's go, Gabs.
Milan are out, OUT out of the Champions League as they're held 1-1 at home by Feyenoord. Robbo, you did the game on TV. I was there. I boiled it down to one scapegoat, Theo Hernández, in the piece I wrote for the website. Am I wrong?
No. The game would have been won by Milan, I'm sure. The tie would have been won by Milan if he'd have stayed on the field. And the two bookings, were pathetic. In the first one, he just grabs somebody. He knows he's going to get a yellow card for that and hauls him to the ground. Theo
Like
Hernandez.
the last minute of the first half as well.
And in the middle of the midfield. And he sort of, the whole of the tie, I thought he plays with an arrogance. The second one, they're in a great situation, an overload down the left-hand side. The ball wasn't a great one to him because it should have been in the space a bit more. And he tries to lift it over the challenge. But when he realises he hasn't made the right contact, he throws himself to the ground. You're on a yellow card. Yeah. You're in control of the game. Don't do something like that.
Now, I'm assuming you didn't dive very much, or there's no point as a player, so I'm not going to even ask you about it. But I would imagine if Alan Moreno, who's more of an expert in these things, were to do it, he says, you do not dive when there's VAR, and you're already on a booking.
Yep. And
in a match that you're dominating.
And you're in a good position as well, because he just got the ball beyond the defender. I think he'd lost his balance and thought, right, I'm going to go to ground and try and win a penalty. That's the problem. So, yes, he was mainly to blame for their loss, I'm afraid.
And well done, Feyenoord. We should also point out, it's not just Milan were dominating. Feyenoord had 10 players out. They had an interim coach on the bench. Reports are our ESPN colleagues in Holland saying Robin van Persie's coming in. But this is a team in disarray. And
two centre-backs did well. Balen and Henko. They were excellent throughout the tie.
Good for them. They're still a team in disarray that Milan should have stomped.
Yeah. Now, sticking with Milan, Gab, you wrote about Christian Pulisic, who was the first player substituted by Sergio Conceição.
Yeah, so Sergio Conceição, I think, not necessarily blameless. But in this, in the sense that I don't understand the logic, right? So, this fool has made it 10 versus 11 for you, and which means that you're going to have to run harder and run smarter. Who do you take off of your front four, right? He played about 10 minutes with this 4-1-4 formation, and then said, all right, this is too crazy even for me. You have to take off the front four. Who do you take off? You take off Pulisic and Santi Jimenez, who I think are your two hardest working players, and you leave out João Felix, who, by the way, I thought also had a stinker, completely disappeared in the second half, and Leao. And I think there's questions to be asked of him there too. More broadly, on Pulisic, the issue is he leads the team in goal contributions this season. He is the most adaptable player. I've said this before, they bring in João Felix, who plays at 10, which is where he played under Fonseca. In my view, for no apparent reason, moving back to the right. I don't know. I spoke to an former Serie A assistant coach who said, sometimes being a good egg doesn't pay. Sometimes, from a coach's perspective, you want the guy who's adaptable. From a player perspective, maybe you should cause a bit of a stink and say, wait, this is a bit disrespectful to me, right?
A bit like we were saying about Bellingham saying, I was the best player last year, why are you moving me?
Exactly.
Yes.
Well, yeah, fair enough. Yeah. But, Bellingham's not going to say, oh, look, I do what Mbappe does, because he doesn't. He's a different player. But whatever, we'll see how this turns out. Now, it takes an Alphonso Davies goal deep in injury time for Bayern to draw 1-1 at home with Celtic and avoid extra time. Robbo, why do they make things so difficult for themselves?
Because I'm not sure they're quite as good as we think they are.
But they're running away with the Bundesliga, far ahead of Bayer Leverkusen and Xabi Alonso and all the geniuses.
They got absolutely murdered by Bayer Leverkusen in a 0-0 draw
on
Saturday. They did. I was at the game, and Bayern just couldn't even get out their half at times. They were totally outplayed. And there was although they weren't totally outplayed by Celtic, they made mistakes. And
Celtic had about 3 chances to score in the first half.
Big chances as well. Throwing mistakes, trying to play out from the back. Defenders making bad decisions. And that's been the case for quite a lot of the season. Kim and Upamecano make mistakes, and Kim for the goal. I mean, he's sliding. He could get to the ball and just pass it back to the goalkeeper. So they've got one or two issues, I think. They're not as good as people think they are. Now, Guirassy misses his penalty, and Borussia Dortmund are held 0-0, but they still advanced thanks to their 3-0 away win. Gab, Sporting aren't the same since Amarin left, although Manchester United aren't doing much better. But can Dortmund surprise people like they did last year?
I genuinely don't think so. I'm not a big Kovac guy. I think we're seeing in the league lots of sort of fits and starts. I think last year things came together very nicely for them. I think they had a bit of a rub of the green. They got a big lift from obviously their January loan signing, Sancho and Maatsen. I think it's a different vibe this year. I think the team is full. If they're going to do anything, he's got to do it with the guys he has, because they spent on Anton, they spent on Guirassy, they spent on Gross, a bunch of guys to go and deliver now. It hasn't been happening. And I think he needs to prioritize the league to get them back on the Champions League spots.
Lost to Bochum at the weekend, and that's not a good start, is it?
Paris Saint-Germain demolished Brest 7-0 with 7 different goal scorers. Robbo Kvichek-Kvaratskhelia notches his first Champions League goal since his move. Is he the missing piece of the puzzle?
Well, I saw PSG a lot in the early part of the season where they passed it too much. They played football in front of the opposition. Now they've got 3 players that can be dynamite going the other way, which is Barcola. They've got Kvaratskhelia, and they've also got Dembele.
The best player in the world, as Jules told us. Right now, on this minute.
On his day, a very good. Hakimi flying forward from right back. So they've gone from a side that passed it very, very well, but without too much penetration, to a team that looked very dangerous. They're a totally different side now that those 3 players are playing than they were at the start of the season. So certainly a side to watch, PSG.
You're on the Lucho Enrique bandwagon.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I'd worry a little bit more about the defense myself, but hey.
Now, Juventus are out, as you said, OUT out of the Champions League, Gab. PSV's Ryan Flamingo scores in extra time to give them a 3-1 win. Gab, are you now going to be nice to Peter Bosz?
Yes. I will. We were weirdly nice to Peter Bosz before, but that second half, first half was still kind of touch and go. That second half, PSV totally battered them, and it was so one way, so one touch, so carefree, so attacking, which is kind of the Bosz way. We can blame Thiago Motta for not making substitutions to address that, to not changing things around. Because clearly when they're streaming forward, there's going to be spaces on the other end. He didn't do that. I mean, he mentioned injuries and whatever, and he says, oh, no, I wouldn't do anything different. But that's very much the Thiago Motta way afterwards, saying like, oh, it's not on me. I do nothing different. Make no mistake about it, PSV Eindhoven, I think, really deserve this. And I have to give a shout out to Ivan Perisic, too.
Oh, absolutely.
So the pass, I think it was from Noah Lang.
Yep.
The run and the pass were tremendous. That pass... It was hit so hard, too. It was a tremendous pass. And then the way he took it, Perisic, obviously an old-timer. This is a guy who, after left Spurs, went back home, signed to Hajduk Split, played 11 games, did his cruciate, and then you assume his career was over. He pops up here, and he delivers a goal like that, delivers a leadership. Tremendous.
I've always loved watching him play. He can cross it with both feet, can get in at the fast post. A great, great character, I would say.
This was way back on Monday, Robbo, but we need to talk Barcelona, who beat Rayo 1-0 to draw level on points with Real Madrid at the top of La Liga, and Atleti are just 1 point back.
It wasn't vintage Barcelona in terms of how they've destroyed teams this season. Rayo Vallecano played well. They had a game plan. They pressed quite high up the field. They made it difficult for Barcelona. But you always think there's goals. When Rafinha's making the runs. Lewandowski was coming shorter and linking up the play, a bit like Harry Kane did when he was at Spurs. It was quite good to watch. And of course, Yamal, for once, had a player that matched him for pace, and he had a difficult time, really. But Pedri was at his very best again. I still worry about their high defensive line. It's a tactic that is flawed at times, but I hope they go and win the league because they're a joy to watch.
All right, let's do this. Percentage chances to win La Liga. Real Madrid, Barcelona, and Atleti. And it has to add up to 100.
So I'm going to go with 20 for Atleti. And I'm going to go for 40 each, the other two.
It's a bit of a cop-out, not showing a preference between the other two.
No, I think that's the way it is at the moment. So yet another Serie A side who we were watching the rest of the Champions League on TV are Atalanta. They were 3-0 down at home at half-time, Gab.
Yeah, so they're playing Bruges. They're annoyed, obviously, by what happened in the first half. They go for it, and they concede in transition. And then concede again just before halftime, which people say is the last thing you should do. In the end, the expected goals in this game were 3.28 for Atalanta, and that includes the penalty that Ademola Lookman missed, which we're going to talk about next, against 1.15. So you could look at this and say, well, you did your part. But in the end, once Bruges took the lead, why should they attack? They're in the driver's seat, and I think Bruges actually handled this very, very well.
Well, I saw them against Man City in the last game of the group stages, and they were excellent in that game. They were a bit unlucky not to get more out of the game against Man City. Their counter-attacking football was excellent, so no surprise really.
Sticking with Lookman, Robbo, Atalanta coach Gasperini said afterwards that he didn't know why Lookman took the penalty since he's one of the worst penalty takers on this team. Unsurprisingly, Lookman found it disrespectful. Why does a coach need to come out and say this?
He doesn't. I mean, he's obviously having a go at the player. He obviously he's fallen out with him. He was at some way or has not trusting him at the moment, because at one point he was one of their star players. He came off the bench in this game.
I think what it is he said, apparently the designated penalty takers were Retegui and De Ketelaere. And coaches hate it when they have a plan and somebody else decides he's going to take the penalty. Lookman fired back and said, no, this is disrespectful. I spoke to them and they said, no, you go ahead and take it. I spoke to them as in Retegui and De Ketelaere.
So why did they tell him to take it?
That's an issue for Gasperini, but these are not the kind of things that you should say out there.
No,
and this has been an issue with Gasperini. He's a hot.
You don't like Gasperini, do you?
No, a lot of people don't like him. I mean, he's a phenomenal coach when things are good. When things go bad, he gets weird.
Does this go back to those Inter days when he was manager for about 6 weeks or whatever it was? A wild one in Lisbon, Gab. Kochu gets the late equaliser for Benfica to send them through against Monaco after their 1-0 first leg win.
Yeah, this was a tremendous game because Monaco nearly came back and made this happen. They scored with Minamino. They had a couple chances. And you could see Benfica and Bruno Lage, they should have been in control. You thought, is the pressure getting to them a little bit? Pavlidis, I think, I thought had another really good game.
Did, yeah.
What is it with center forwards coming out of the Portuguese league? But no, I think in the end, fair result for what we saw over the 2 legs. And it's curious. I think there's more to come from Marihoto and Monaco. Jude Bellingham will get a 2-game ban after being sent off for using foul language in the Osasuna game at the weekend. Robbo, seem fair to you?
Yes. We can't keep saying that you've got to respect referees and be good professionals, and then moan when a player swears at a referee and gets away with it. It's not the first time he's done it. If you see his antics over the last year, he went from being seemed very happy with everything in life to being somebody that always moaned about the referees and everything that was going against him. So he deserved it. So, yes, I agree with you.
I think he's fortunate. And actually, if I were the club, it's not going to happen.
No.
But I would find him as well.
Yeah.
Because I go back to this. And first of all, the defense that Real Madrid mounted, or not Real Madrid, the Real Madrid adjacent press, about the whole FU versus F off and blah, blah, blah. I remind people of 2 basic things. First of all, F off may be a customary thing to say in this country, and it's not directed at the referee, and it's not abusive. First of all, that's something for the referee to decide. I mean, second of all, you're not in this country. You're not in England. And guess what? Jude Bellingham knows this because he hasn't played in England since he was 16. So that's a stupid argument there.
And he was banned last season for exactly the same thing.
And the other thing, you're in a foreign country, adapt to the rules. He knows this. He's not a stupid person. He's somebody he's played abroad for his entire career virtually, right? And the other big thing is, I go back to the video. Forget what he said. How about the fact that he's stalking the referee, trying to talk to him, while the referee's talking to Luka Modric, and the referee's clearly signaling to him, like, I'm talking to your captain. Don't talk to me. Don't talk to me. We have this directive, right? Yeah. If some referees want to allow other players and they want to have a different convivial relationship with them, that's up to them. But it's not up to you.
No.
Did you ever get sent off for swearing at the referee?
I only got sent off once, and it was never for swearing at the referee.
Or swearing at teammates?
No, and I never got a yellow card or anything like that for swearing at the referee. I always respected referees. There we go.
There you go. Learn from Stewart Robson.
Now, sticking with Real Madrid, they have complained so much about La Liga referees that there were reports in Spain that they were considering joining a different league. What league would that be then?
Well, there could be the league that this A22 nonsense, the Unity League, formerly known as the Super League, that they're still pretending. Remember, Florentino Perez told his membership that in September we'll probably be playing in that September 2025. Like, okay, whatever. It's just a way to protest against it. Javier Tebas, who of course never misses a chance to fire back, as the man likes to talk, he says it's impossible. And Real Madrid know it because there's actually a sports law, which I think this was introduced after the Super League debacle.
Yeah.
It's a national law in Spain that says that clubs in Spain must participate in national competitions by law. So he says they're not going to. Real Madrid aren't going to defy the law. So it doesn't even really come into the into the discussion here. It's one thing if they're talking about a Super League. There's European competition law, which leaves opportunity for them. Although they have an issue, is who are they going to play, or are they going to end up just simply playing like Alanya, Vladikavkaz, and Dinamo Minsk or whatever. But even this notion that they might, as some people floated, maybe they'll go and they'll join Ligue 1 or they'll join Serie A or they'll join the Premier League. No, it's right now as the law stands, they cannot do that. More Liga. Antony has been nominated for Player of the Month. Robbo, he's been on fire since joining Betis. Can you explain how a change of scenery can be so transformational? Is it just seeing the lovely Manuel Pellegrini on the sidelines rather than Eric Ten Hag that does it?
Or Amorim or anybody, yes.
Yeah.
Well, he knows if you're a player, you either play with confidence or you don't play with confidence. He got off to a bad start at Manchester United. The crowd didn't like him. The press didn't like him. Probably the other players didn't like him particularly.
Stepovers were fun to watch.
Yeah, so every time he went on the field, he was playing under a cloud. So you can't play at your very best. And like many Manchester United players, when he was bought by Manchester United, if you spoke to anybody in the Netherlands, they'd say, he's been the best player in the league, the most creative player in the league. What a good player he is. He never showed that at Manchester United. So everybody thinks he's a bad player. But there must be a good player in there. And now, with a bit more freedom and a new coach and the love of the fans, he's playing well. So
yeah, I'm not sure that he was actually the best player in the Dutch league.
That's what some of the Dutch people told us.
Yeah. I think he obviously suffered because of his price tag, but it's nice to see somebody with the skills doing special things on the pitch, and he's doing it.
Yeah.
Whether this will last, I don't know.
Now, Ligue financial woes are well documented, Gab, but we had some more insight into just how bad that relationship is between the clubs when last summer's Zoom meeting of club officials was leaked.
Yeah, so to give some background on this, they'd said that they were going to make $1 billion from the sale of domestic TV rights. In the end, they brought in $500 million, $400 million from DAZN, $100 million from beIN Sport. And there's been sniping, and now DAZN obviously saying, no, we didn't reach the number of subscribers that we wanted to reach, so we are renegotiating here. And, this is a fascinating insight because we know when leagues get together, you've got 18 owners in this case, or 20 owners, or club officials, and a lot of them are alpha males. And the ones that work well are the ones where maybe they have an almighty row behind the scenes, but outwardly it's a completely unified front, and nobody leaks anything, right? It was like that for 20 odd years in the Premier League under Scudamore. Less so now, in part because Man City don't see eye to eye with the Premier League, and why should they when they got 130 charges? But this is just extraordinary. And if you don't speak French, don't worry. Half the Ligue 1 owners don't seem to either. There's a Zoom of this. It's on YouTube. And it is absolutely fascinating. So Nasser Al-Khelaifi, who, of course, is the head of the European Clubs Association, is the guy who runs beIN Sport, and, of course, the guy who runs Paris Saint-Germain. It seemed like everybody was having a go at him. Jules' friend, Joseph Augurlian from Lens, saying to Nasser, you're bullying everyone. Nasser says to him, you don't understand anything when it comes to media. And then our old buddy, John Textor, at one point, he says, maybe someone other than Nasser should talk. And Nasser says, John, you don't understand anything at all. You're a cowboy who comes from I don't know where. It's also kind of funny because Textor actually owns or was heavily involved in a streaming company of his own not that long ago. The basis of this, other than the fact that you realize these rich and powerful men who are so smart and whatever, that they behave like kids when they're in the room, and they clearly do not see each other as business partners. But fundamentally, Augurlian and Textor and the others, they raise a really good point. This is a massive conflict of interest to have a guy who owns a football club who's also one of the major buyers of television rights via beIN Sport.
Yep.
I'll go so far as to say it should be allowed by law. I think here in England, they have actually rules where, Sky or Discovery or ESPN cannot own a Premier League club, or
Yeah.
it's pretty obvious why not. And yet you've got this one person who's got those two things, and he's also on the executive committee of UEFA via his role with the European Clubs Association. This is an enormous.
Are you trying to say he's more powerful than you?
I mean, no, it's not a question of power. It's a question of conflict of interest. And I'm wondering why I, as an investor, I mean, if I were an investor, why would I want to invest in a league where you've got a guy who has this enormous conflict of interest, who is, who runs the richest, most powerful club and buys the TV rights? And I know what's going to happen now if the Zone end up packing it in or whatever. It's only going to leave beIN Sport. I feel bad for Liga. I feel bad for French football that the situation's there. I know we make fun of John Textor all the time, Jules and I, but the guy has a point on this one. This is not a healthy situation. I don't know who leaked it. In fact, I have a very good idea who leaked it, but I could be wrong, so I'm not going to share it here. But I'm glad that people are getting an insight over what goes on there, and seeing these people on their Zoom call talking to each other in this way, you realize just how dysfunctional it is right now.
Gab, Inter Miami have a new official hydration partner. Should we give them a free plug?
Well, first of all, I want to know, when you were at Arsenal, who was your official hydration partner? Was it H2O?
No, we didn't have any. But when I was coaching at
H2O
Wimbledon,
is water.
Yes, I
was
understand
setting
that.
up for
Yes,
the joke.
yes.
You weren't even allowed water back then.
No, we weren't. We were not allowed because, this is the honest truth, we weren't allowed water because it would give you a stitch. The only thing you used to drink is tea at half time. No one could have water. That's how bizarre is that?
Okay, I would love to know who your doctor was. Don't tell him because he'll probably sue us. But do you realize that tea is water with some leaves, caffeinated leaves in it? Yeah?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, all right.
It's madness. When you look back at what people were doing, it's absolute madness.
Wow, different time back then. But yes, no, Inter Miami, their official hydration partner is something called Mass Plus, which is the official energy drink owned by Lionel Messi.
Oh, of course.
Which works great. And it's a nice sort of multi-level sponsorship because, of course, the guy who owns Inter Miami, or one of the main owners, is a guy named Jorge Mas. So Mas owns the club where the official hydration partner is Mass Plus, and it's owned by his best player.
And I will tell you a story afterwards. It's not for air. What happened when I was coach of Wimbledon and we had a certain hydration drink sponsor.